Hello, Canucks fans. Howdy, Canucks fans, I should say, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, which is brought to you by the great folks over at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. We were there for the first viewing party of the year. We're going to have more throughout the year, so don't miss out on the next ones. And if you came to the first one, of course you'll want to come to our next one as well. But even if we're not there, you should be there. Just minutes from the arena, Greta Bar YVR is the place to be before and after the game, or whatever event you're downtown for. With weekly drink specials, Greta Bar YVR is the place to be. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. You want to talk about it? I really like your costume.
Thanks, man.
It's Halloween, folks, and for those on the podcast, I'm dressed like Sheriff Woody, and you're dressed as
Maverick from Top Gun.
Is that Tom Cruise?
I think.
Have you seen? Didn't we have this conversation?
Yeah.
Neither of us have seen Top Gun.
No, we haven't.
So you're wearing a Top Gun costume. I've seen Toy Story. I forgot. We've talked about this.
I've been meaning to, but okay, I'll give you the backstory. Okay, so I'm very efficient when it comes to Halloween costumes. So this was like 2 or 3 years ago. Last minute, I had to go to a Halloween party, and I'm like, I don't want to put effort into this. So I was like, what can I like? I just like rummaged around my closet.
Together, yeah.
So I had this green shirt. I had this green bomber jacket, and I was like, and these aviator shades, and I was like, all I need are green pants. Which I can, like dark green pants, kind of like forest green, which I can use for my regular outfits anyway, so it's not just wasting money on a Halloween costume.
Yeah.
And so I went out and bought the pants, put it together, and everybody loved my costume. I was like, this is great.
I like your costume too. The chat is ripping you that you haven't seen Top Gun, but neither have I. You'll watch it.
Top Gun is an absolute classic.
You've told us this,
It
technical
is
producer
so
Jacob
good.
Lazar. You've told us this. You've told us that Top Gun is like worth watching, and it's funny that we've had this
It's
conversation.
so
before, 'cause
cheesy 80s though, but it's so good cheesy 80s.
and then they made a second one.
They
I
did,
think,
yeah.
Funny enough, we had this conversation
Should
with
we start
Wyatt
with the
Arndt.
old one or the more recent
No,
one?
you start with the old one. The first one, and then you go to
Okay,
yeah. But we've had this conversation with Wyatt Arndt before, who's going to join us in a matter of moments. We've had this conversation about Top Gun with him before. Do you remember? Like, this was a
I think so,
conversation we
yeah.
had with Wyatt on the show. Wyatt's going to join us and help us break down last night's game. It's not very fun, but we're going to break it down.
I was also thinking of just not showing up today and saying I dressed up as a Canucks last night.
That's a good one. I highlighted, they did the Canucks PR tweets out the schedule, and they tweeted team day off, and I tweeted, here comes everybody saying 2 days in a row, ? Because anyways, the Canucks did take the night off last night. Our opening segment is brought to you by the Vancouver Whitecaps, including Wyatt Arndt, of course. A great effort with a couple bounces going the wrong way had the Whitecaps fall to LA in Game 1 of their first-round matchup in the 2024 MLS Cup playoffs. Come out and support the Whitecaps on their MLS Cup playoff run. Game 2 of the best-of-3 series with LAFC is this Sunday at 5:45 at BC Place. Tickets for this playoff match are on sale now. Click the link in our episode description or go to ticketmaster.ca/Whitecaps. Support the team. Get your tickets Sunday, 5:45 at BC Place. Wyatt's going to join us any second now, but Harm, a tough one. We want to watch Top Gun. We don't want to watch any replays of last night's game.
I've been trying to delay it as much as possible because I don't think anybody really wants to, like, Talkett said it himself, just like flush that one down the toilet, right? And we're going to have to obviously analyze it, and there are things that are worth discussing that have a big picture effect on this team moving forward. There are things that we learned, but at the same time, it's one of those games when you get blown out that badly, I don't think a lot of fans want to hear about it.
Sure, but I also, and the players and the coach said this as well, it wasn't just you do flush it, but you don't completely forget about what happened.
Oh, yeah,
and you don't just ignore everything, because Tyler Myers said it. Like, Tyler Myers said it post-game that this wasn't just a one-off. Like, their results have not lined up with the way they've been playing so far this season. And their record's fine, which is great. Like, that's a luxury. But again, I think you got there largely because of Kevin Lankinen. And again, we saw Artur Shilovs last night. He wasn't good enough. I don't think we need to spend too much time talking about Shilovs, but like, at the end of the day, he's had a few NHL starts now this season, and they have not gone well. Like, they just haven't. The results aren't there. And I'm a big Shilovs guy. I'm a big Shilovs truther, but I said it on yesterday's show, and obviously I stand by it. And I said it in the week as well. But Kevin Lankinen should have started last night's game. I stand by that, obviously. But at the end of the day, if you score 0 goals, you can't win. So, I don't know. Shilovs wasn't good enough, but neither was the team in front of him. Oh. A guy who's always good enough. Wyatt Arndt. What was that laugh? That was like an actual Halloween evil laugh. That was
No, it's just
Wyatt
more
Arndt.
of a, I'm always good enough. Like that's like my resume. It's good enough.
What are you dressed as?
Seattle's worst nightmare. Yeah.
I don't get it.
I know you don't, but everyone who watches football knows.
I get it. Yeah.
Josh Allen.
Move on.
Josh
There you
Allen.
go. You got it.
Quarterback, Buffalo Bulls. Okay.
Buffalo Bulls.
Buffalo Bulls.
Bills.
Can we
Bills.
clip that? I need that one clip for the
Buffalo
Twitter.
Bills. Buffalo Bills. I got it. Not in the Stanchies club today. Is that because it's Halloween, or is that because of how last night's game went?
This is the Canucks defensive zone behind me, so I'm just kind of want to go. Yeah.
Let's
scary.
start there, Wyatt. Let's start there. The bottom four defense just hasn't been good enough this season. Obviously, Tyler Myers just completely blows the zone on that first goal. He does the swing, right? Like everybody's talking. That's a big topic around Canucks Nation right now is swinging. He did the little loop around the player instead of going through a guy who had the puck. It was Dawson Mercer, and he kind of, I don't know if we have the video, Jacob, but it was the first goal last night, and Myers just kind of like eases off and goes the other way, and it's just like, and then he ran into Patterson, but you don't need to get into that too much. It's more so just that like he has an opportunity, and for those on the podcast you won't see it, but he has an opportunity to go through Dawson Mercer, swings, it's a 2-on-1, and then of course Archer Sheloves doesn't make the save. It's a tough save, no doubt, but Archer Sheloves obviously doesn't make it. Canucks are behind the 8 ball right away. Wyatt, the bottom four, not good enough.
Yeah, I mean the swing lifestyle's not for everyone, and I think Tyler Myers, when he comes in like that, like I feel like Tyler Myers from like maybe 3 years ago, he's gonna like go and make that hit because that's what he's like. They're hunting hits. He loves to do that. But now I feel like that's kind of like the coach Myers, who knows he has to be a bit more grounded. So I think he's kind of overthought it. He's like, oh no, I shouldn't pitch too much, and then ends up doing the big swing. But I think, the entire team just hasn't really been on the same page. It's almost the end of October, and we have Rick Talk already saying we haven't had one game where we played 60 minutes. So it's been almost, the entire month of that happening. And yeah, like when you have Myers not playing well, and Carson Soucy for me is one where I'm like, what is going on with his game? He just looks slow, and his decision making, which normally is like one of his best attributes, just isn't there. Like the team's in trouble. And for me, after a huge loss, Rick Tocchet's always going to have his team's back. Like, oh, forget it, move on. So for me, the biggest press conference was the day after the Carolina loss in overtime, and that's when he's more open because it's like, okay, I'm not kicking my team when they're down. And he talked about a lot of subjects. I don't think people are talking about it enough. He was talking about Patterson not moving his feet, talking about how they it's not the coaching. We've told the team what to do, and especially like against Carolina, like we told them on the power play they're going to stack the side. They still ended up going that side. So like there is a disconnect right now with the players not putting into play what the coach are telling them to do. So I do think there is concern from talk of what he's seen from the team, because that loss, we haven't seen that kind of loss under Rick last year at all. Like that was there were two things from that game that people could cheer for. It was a Garland fight in which he got beat up, and there was a Teddy Bluger breakaway. And then that was it. Like that, it was such a low event game for this team.
Wyatt, I saw my first fire talk-it on Twitter yesterday. People throwing out the fire talk-it. Where you at with that?
I mean, that's the thing. Like we're getting the reactionary stuff and like, oh, you bring in a mid coach, get mid results and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, I do think obviously people maybe elevated him a bit high last season because the start of the season, everything went their way, but he's still a good coach. Quinn Hughes loves him, talks about him being his favorite coach. He brought in a system to this team that we saw with Travis Green. Bruce Boudreau wasn't there. So I don't think this is the time to go after him. And that kind of trickles down to like everyone on the roster, especially Elias Patterson. Like, let's get into that subject. Like he right now is getting a lot of the same thing you hear what the Sedin's got early in the careers. Oh, he's too weak in the puck. He's falling down a lot. He doesn't want it enough. And there's like that veiled, not North American enough style of play underneath it all. And when I watched last game, like, no, Patterson's trying. I just don't think his head's in the game. Like at one point I put on the stand, she's like, he was chasing a hit down, which is like, yeah, good for you for trying to be that, like, okay, we're down, we try and be physical, but he put himself out of position and they end up getting an odd man rush. So I just think he's like overthinking. Like end of the first period, he gets that shot, he's in the slot. Elias Patterson a couple years ago kind of skates in a bit, picks his corner. Here it looks like he was think right in the middle of the chest. So it's like, I think people are attacking Patterson and like yeah, obviously last season wasn't great in this year, but you've got to give him a bit of time to find himself, because I just think people are giving up on everything way too quickly. Like, coach, like, how are you going to Rick Tocchet right now? How can you be doing that in October?
I'll be honest, Quads. I didn't think you'd even be asking about Tocchet like that. That caught me completely off guard.
Well, that's the thing is I'm seeing now again. It was
I think that's a
few
complete
people.
over. Like
Totally.
I think that's like the
No.
fringe, like 1%. Like I don't think anybody's really blaming Rick Tocchet for this. And the idea that
well, hang on. There was like a more popular idea and tweet that Rick Tocchet's broken Elias Pettersson. Like that was going around last night.
Yeah, and I think that's like I don't buy that either.
Yeah, Neither
to
do
me-
I. But it's absolutely a talking point. Not fire talk it, but it's absolutely a talking point that the coach is picking up some of the blame here.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately not his fault, Talkett's fault at all. But why to sort of transition to sort of looking at last night's game, a lot of the discussion is obviously around the goaltending and Shilov sort of struggling. But when you look at the season as a whole, how would you grade Vancouver's actual defensive play? Because last year they were rock solid, especially in the second half. They were elite when it came to protecting the slot, not giving up anything off the rush. Seems to be a bit leakier, especially the last couple of games. But how do you think the Canucks are defending overall so far this season? And how much of that do you think relates to the growing pains of the Canucks trying to open up their system and create a little bit more offense?
I mean, that's the big thing, because Rick Tocchet did kind of put it out there, like, we got to score more goals, and he's sometimes honest to a fault. And so, like, a lot of coaches kind of keep that, like Travis Green keeps everything to the chest, so you can't really, attack him for anything. But Tocchet was open, like, we want to get a few more goals, and so that is kind of a talking point. And we don't know, it could be something where the team is trying to push a bit more. If we want to get in that psychology, it could be that last season got off to a hot start, they were the underdogs, and this year maybe they come in a bit complacent, like, subconsciously, like, oh, we were great last year, we're gonna be great this year, and you just don't know where it is. And like, there's even things like JT Miller's performance last night, I thought was one of the worst games I've seen from him. He was completely disengaged. We also know he's dealing with a bit of an injury, so you just don't know where everything kind of lands in terms of what players are doing. But all we can do is go by the results. And yeah, you're right, defensive coverage has not been the Tocchet way. Like, the odd man rushes are there. Like, Kevin Lankinen shouldn't have to play as well to keep these guys in the game. Like, that Carolina game could have been a blowout. Could have been a 5-0 game. If that had been Shilov's in net, could have been a 5-0 game. Kevin made huge saves when it was 2-1, and like, he kept him in it. So I think this team right now, they are leaking chances, and a lot of that comes down to, like we've talked about in the show before, their defensive depth isn't quite there. Like, their bottom pairing is trouble, and when their second pairing isn't firing, they're in a lot of trouble.
Our pal Jeff Patterson wrote something at Canucks Army today. 9 stats that have defined the Vancouver Canucks' first 9 games of the 24-25 season. I'll quickly go through some of them, okay? So we've got lack of star power. We can talk about that. Kevin Lankinen has been lights out. We know that. Quinn Hughes is the only person on the team that shoots the puck. The power play, not good enough. I think these are all different topics that we can get to, but the one I wanted to quickly rattle off here was Jeff also dove into Elias Pettersson's NHL edge data, and it's not even close. Like, it's not even close to what it was last year. The shot is slower, less effective. He's shooting the puck a lot less. He's not skating as quickly. He's not having the same bursts of speed that he's normally having. He's not having the same top speed. Like, take your pick. Go look at an NHL edge stat for Elias Pettersson. It's worse this year than it was last year. Wyatt, people want answers, and again, we don't really have them through 9 games, but like, what the hell's going on with Elias Pettersson? I'll tell you this. I personally just think it's his knee. Like, I think it's largely just his knee is aggravating him again. I don't think it's a coincidence that he tailed off at the end of last season, says his knee was bugging him in that time, comes to training camp, says, oh yeah, I'm dealing with the nagging injury that doesn't want to go away, and now he looks the exact same. Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. That's my personal belief, but I know there's people out there who think it's the wrist, mental, whatever it is. Like, what's your theory on what's going on with Elias Pettersson?
Yeah, he's kind of been under the spotlight for a long time. Like, he has like a towel on his wrist on the bench. It's his wrist again. Like, that's always been the theory for a long time. But the knee one's the one we know about for sure. And that fact, if you have an injury, everyone who's had an injury, it affects you. And like, even like, him getting that puck in the slot in the first period, maybe he doesn't feel comfortable taking a couple of strides because he doesn't have the power there. And like, we haven't seen him make those moves where he beats a guy and dang. We seen like, well, he tried to deke one guy a couple of games ago, and that like stood out. Like, oh wow, he tried it, and that used to be like 5-6 times a game. And for me, the biggest thing, like, it's not like, I think he is trying. He just doesn't, like you said, I think it's a mental thing, a mental disconnect from his body, from his skill, from his game. It's all kind of coming together because we, again, talked about in the show as well, like, his defensive game isn't, like, he was in the point where it was like, oh, this guy's a Selke candidate. Like, he is so good defensive zone. He gets to the right spots. Like, he's never been the quickest skater, but he's a smart player. He knows where to get to. And now, like, it really does, like, to use the Ben Simmons thing, like, he just feels like he's got the yips. He's not, doesn't want to shoot it. He's always looking past. Like, I know people are like, yeah, his line mates, Garland, I think is a fantastic line mate, but you've got like, Baines going up there, and you're like, okay, like, I think they have tried enough that he should still be able to produce. There is a level of like, you're getting paid. You've got to find a way to get in the score sheet. It shouldn't be Garland carrying your line. And that's what's happening right now. And I know, like, we had the whole, like, oh, Miller and him shoved to practice stuff, and people are like, oh, is he like tough enough and stuff? And we don't know. Like we can say like certain players I'm sure can deal with pain better than others, but maybe it's in his head now. Like maybe he's getting frustrated that he knows how he can play, but he can't do it, and he's not finding a way to adjust. And again, I think I see the effort there. Like he's trying to throw hits, he's still trying to do things, but like he's just he's not the player he needs to be for this team. And this team, like defense issues aside, if Patterson can't get it together, there's not going to be a long playoff run for this team.
I feel bad because we're just shifting from one negative topic to another, but we kind of have to. The power play was again abysmal last night, and I sort of look at that 4-minute opportunity that they had 4 minutes into the game as like right away when Hughes drew that call. I looked over to PJ in the press box and said, one way or another, I promise you this is going to be a major turning point in the game where power play's been under the microscope. Either they get back on track and they're able to tie it up and you're able to get out of this early hole and feel confident, or guaranteed they're going to look back on it as this big missed opportunity and it could set the tone for the rest of the night, where any further man advantages that they get, they may struggle. And that's sort of exactly what happened. Of course, Miller had a turnover at one point, and on the final Canucks power play, him and Garland were bumped down to the second unit in favor of Sprong and DeBrusk. There's long been a search for finding that right fourth forward to play on that top unit ever since Bo Horvat left. They experimented with DeBrusk early on. They gave Garland a shot. Do you think Sprong deserves an extended look on PP1 to see if he can be the option?
At this point, you try anything, right? Because you can't deny that Tocchet has given that first unit multiple chances trying to figure it out. And I like Garland, but I also really like him as kind of being the spark plug on the second unit. So if they can get Sprong, who's got those really good offensive instincts, he might struggle defensively, but that's a perfect scenario in which maybe he kind of takes off a bit. And at this point, you can kind of sense the frustration from Tocchet when he talks with the power play, like just even something simple as movement. Like you saw Carolina in overtime, obviously it's 3-on-3, but the way they move the puck and they rotate, they're able to get those open looks. And the Canucks, the puck moves, not them. And so they move it around the outside a lot, and they're not moving and switching up to get those open looks, and they're not creating open ice. So teams are just kind of sitting back and letting them rotate and blocking the shooting lanes, and the Canucks aren't generating anything. And he even talked about like where's the one timer, coach? Where's the one timer? And he mentioned Patterson specifically. He's not moving his feet. If you stand in one spot, that's easy to block. And as much as I enjoy Garland's game, that guy's not a shooting threat. So if he's got the puck on the wall, you don't have to respect his shot at all. So I think the Canucks are in a spot where like, yeah, you try anything because the power play is losing them games. Their defensive coverage is losing them games. They've got to find a way to start winning some games because it's only October, but it's pretty easy to fall behind in this league, and all of a sudden it gets away from you.
There's a lot of interaction going on in the chat right now. People have their theories, and there's a few people talking about like, oh, well, all the games were close. Like, folks, you got to go listen to what Rick Tocchet and what Tyler Myers said last night. Like, Myers was the one that really highlighted it, where he said, like, we have not found our A game yet. And again, like, we know they've been bailed out by Kevin Lankinen. Like, we know this. We all need to kind of understand this, that the reason this team has points right now is because of Kevin Lankinen. Quite frankly, he's the only goaltender that's gotten the points. Let's not turn this into a conversation about Archer Shelovs, but like, Kevin Lankinen's been one of the best goaltenders in the league, and that's been why this team has found success early on. There are problems with the way that they're playing in front of him. The team is addressing it. The coach is addressing it. Again, Tyler Myers last night, go listen to that interview. It's up now on CanucksArmy.com if you want to go read about it. Like, he's talking about all of these issues that we're also talking about. This isn't just oh yeah, just forget it, like it's fine. This was, okay, our goalie wasn't there to bail us out tonight. We really have to figure some stuff out here. Again, your 5-on-5 defending isn't good enough. Your rush defending was way worse last night than it has been all of this season. Like, we haven't seen that many 2-on-1s this season, but we have seen 2-on-1s, and Kevin Lankinen has stopped most of them. Again, this isn't an Archer Shelovs conversation. This is a team in front of him conversation. And again, the team in front of him has their warts and has their issues right now. Shifting gears a bit, Wyatt, I've looked ahead. That November schedule is a perfect get-right schedule. Like, that's a great chance to bank some points. It starts this Saturday when they take on the San Jose Sharks. Like, are you looking at this as a chance for the Canucks to just like, okay, we can work through our stuff and we can start to build some good habits? Because even if we make the odd mistake here and there, like, these teams that we're facing aren't going to always be able to burn us every time, like a New Jersey or a Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, New Jersey is one of the best offensive teams in the NHL. It's a tough team to go against, especially for Sheelows. I felt bad that he's thrown in that game, but they've got San Jose, Anaheim, LA. LA is a tough one, but you've got potential easy wins against Anaheim and San Jose. Perfect time to kind of get your game in shape. And again, every team has ups and downs, and this happens to be the start of the season, which makes it feel kind of worse. If this was maybe like a December slump, you're like, okay, well, we've seen some good hockey. Here's some bad hockey. Right now, all we've seen has kind of been the mediocre hockey, and they've got to kind of find their way. And I will say the vibe. This is like probably. I'm not saying it's the word. We didn't see this kind of vibe last year. Last year, you always kind of felt like they didn't lose more than 3 games in a row. Like, I don't know, maybe once. I don't know if any. Like, they just always kind of felt like we're gonna get our game back, and they would get it back. Like, or Ian Cole was like always famous for like, yeah, we're gonna get this turned around, and they would do it. This season, it's kind of felt like there is a bit, the vibe's a bit off. Maybe they aren't getting the wins as easy. Maybe the balance isn't going. Like, maybe it's just a bit of bad puck luck, bad skill, poorly timed injuries. It's all kind of hitting at once. And I just think the vibe right now is a team that's kind of doesn't know what to do to turn this around. Because again, you talk to the players, you talk to the coach, you can sense just a little bit of frustration on the servers that like they know the answers, but they can't get them yet. So it's like they've really got this road trip, honestly, like 2-1 bare minimum for this team to kind of maybe I think get some good vibes going.
Before I sort of close it out, I wanted to shift gears a little bit. Give me your glass half full take on what you've seen from the Canucks so far in October, the first month of the season. Give us some positives and maybe some reasons for fans to just continue being optimistic, just because we've spent a lot of time talking about what's been wrong so far.
I think we haven't seen anything even close to their A game, so we know like they're winning games either with a good goaltending or Quinn Hughes playing 80 minutes a night. Like they have won a lot of games by not playing a complete game, and we know they can. They have that in them. We saw last year, so I think this team can put it together. I think they've got the right coaching staff to do it. It's just a matter of just finding that groove. So I think I understand this is kind of a frustrating season so far, but I have no doubt this team can put together. It's not like Edmonton's struggling too. So Calgary had the hot start, then they're struggling. Like no one's really just running away with it right now. Everyone's kind of finding the groove. So it's not just Vancouver. Like it's very easy to see the team in front of you is having only issues. A lot of teams are having issues and holes trying to fix. So for Vancouver, Quinn Hughes is having another amazing campaign so far. Kevin Lankinen, thank God for him, because the team would be in a lot of trouble without him. And then you got Demko coming back. So if you got Lankinen and Demko to get you through the season, that makes your ability to make sure Demko doesn't get overplayed so much easier to handle, right? So they've got some things going for them this year, but they just got to kind of figure that, get on the same page. Because again, for me, the biggest takeaway right now is just that glimmer of frustration we're talking, or like the coaching staff is telling them what to do, but they're not able to do it on the ice yet.
And again, you highlighted why there's a lack of star power right now. If those guys figure it out, you've got Jake DeBrusk, who doesn't have a goal. Elias Patterson, obviously we've talked about him. He had 15 points through 9 games last year. He's got 4 this year. JT Miller, same thing. Brock Besser even wasn't great last night, especially. When these guys start to really find their stride, it's going to help. And again, the power play. The power play, knock on wood, isn't going to be like this all year long. You don't think. We hope not. So that's
could be, who knows?
That's my glass half full, is that things they have too much skill.
But also it's not like their power play is at the bottom of the NHL. It's still
so things
it's
could
below
get worse.
It's below average, but it's also been looking at the numbers, they've been 2015 in the NHL since last season's All-Star break, 41 games, half a season of them being 25th. And so far, I don't think it's not like they're 32nd where you're like, okay, they're going to be better. It's like they're kind of mediocre below average, which is that could be them for the entire season. It could also improve, but don't think this is the floor and that it's only up from here for the power play.
On that note, we'll close it out with Wyatt. So Wyatt, things could get a lot worse.
Well, and that's a Vancouver way. I will say one quick shout. The Canucks, right now, have got a very serviceable third line that's working really well for them.
Yeah.
Right. That line looks like it could be a real line. So then, if you get Dakota Joshua back, if you get a Garland, Patterson, Joshua line, there might be something there that could work as well. So I think their forward depth, it is potentially very, very good. Kiefer Sherwood, we didn't mention him. He's a huge highlight alone. It's the defensive depth. Honestly, I bet you anything. We know this team likes to move early and try to make trades. I have no doubt they're looking at these D-men right now, because that is the one glaring weakness for me, that defensive depth.
Absolutely. And ultimately, that's the thing. I highlighted on yesterday's show, this management group has made trades in October. They have made a ton of trades in November, specifically for defensemen too. We've seen them do it. Again, I think it helps that they've banked some points, and that's going to certainly help. And it's not a panic. It needs to get done on November 1st. Again, soft schedule as well. So it'll be nice, I think, to wait until we see some defensive reinforcements. But you're bang on, Wyatt. I think once they get that defensive reinforcement, it's certainly going to help them just be a better team, all in all. But with that, we'll let Wyatt go. Wyatt, thanks so much for joining us, and we really appreciate it. We'll chat with you next week.
Whose costume's better?
Okay.
I mean, I'm convinced Harmon just showed up to work and forgot it was Halloween. So I don't think that's a costume at all.
Do you remember we were having this conversation with you a while ago? Neither of us have seen Top Gun.
I gotta go. I don't want I can't
Wyatt
have
Arndt,
this
ladies
conversation
and
again. See you guys later.
There he is. Wyatt Arndt, noted Buffalo Bulls fan. Okay, so quads and this question in the chat here. Why isn't Harmon Buzz? My fiance is dressed like Buzz Lightyear today, just so everybody knows.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's our
that's
costume.
me.
No, and Bert is dressed with he's the alien from Toy Story. You know the aliens?
I can't, for some reason, I can't picture it. I've watched Toy Story.
You know,
Don't worry.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I'm
No,
sure you've
don't
watched
worry,
Toy
I
Story.
have.
You know the claw? The claw.
Oh, okay, yeah.
See, my bang on alien impression. Gotcha. Okay, do you want to get to Family Feud?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, we'll start with you. The score is 5-1. I don't have headphones. How am I gonna do this?
You're just gonna get up and leave the studio. You're
Yeah,
on
I'll
the
do that.
couch.
And then okay. We're 5-1. I'll be right back.
You can look at me through the glass, and then I'll wave at you when you can come back in.
Go out dressed like there's so many people out there, and I have to go out like this. No, I'm gonna wait in the hallway. I'll be right here.
All right.
I'm your man, Jacob Lazar. David Quadrelli's walking right past me right now, heading out into the hallway in his Woody costume. And it's time for another edition of Canucks Conversation Family Feud. Harmon, you had your worst week last
Yeah.
week. I'm expecting a bounce back
Yeah,
from you,
hopefully.
all right? All right, I'm going to remind you again of our rules. I'm going to read all the questions. You're going to have 25 seconds. Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question. Don't worry, I know you always ask. Your timer will show up on your monitor. And if you don't know an answer, just say pass. We'll come back to it at the end if we have time. Are you ready, Harmon?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so this one is very applicable for you guys today. So
Okay,
I wanted a few that were on theme, and the first question certainly
All right.
is. Which Canuck do you think spends the most time on their Halloween costume?
JT Miller.
Who is the scariest player in Canucks history?
Gino Ojic.
Besides Messier, who's the biggest villain in Canucks history?
Brad Marchand.
Which current Canuck would make the best broadcaster?
JT Miller.
Name a Canuck who didn't wear a visor.
Kevin Bieksa.
Nailed it. Great
Okay,
work.
I feel a lot better about this one than last week.
Yes, I'm going to go grab quads, and
All
then
right.
I'll tally up your score.
All right, let's do it. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't choke 2 weeks in a row. That would have been bad.
Oh, quads on his way back in. Harmon, you did very well.
I didn't choke. I bounced back. That would have been rough. Look, two bad
work.
performances in a row can do that.
Nice, great work. So what are we looking at? Like,
Tallying the scores right
I'm not saying I
now.
crushed it, but I did well.
No,
enough to have a chance to
Harm
win.
definitely crushed it.
nice.
Harm got 121 points.
Okay, that's solid.
awesome. Yeah, that's a good start.
Sorry, I just had to close the door that quads left open.
My bad.
Yeah. All right. So yes, again, 121 points. Quads. I feel like you're going to probably hear a buzzer today.
Okay.
I think that's going to be inevitable. I'm going to play it here just to make sure you can hear it.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. I think that is going to come into play. You're going to have 30 seconds on the clock. If you hear any, or if you repeat any of Harm's answers, going to give you the buzz. No, didn't. That was a great pun. Talking to Woody, and I'm going to give you the buzz. Never mind. You still.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, took me a second. I'm trying to lock in, man. You can't be telling me jokes right now.
I'm trying to prevent you from locking in because I want to stump you guys.
Oh.
All right. Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question. If you can't think of an answer, just say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. Are you ready?
Yes.
Which Canuck do you think spends the most time on their Halloween costume?
Nils Höglander.
Who is the scariest player in Canucks history?
Gino Ojic.
Try again.
Darcy Hordachuk.
Besides Messier, who's the biggest villain in Canucks history?
Ryan Kessler.
Which current Canuck would make the best broadcaster?
Thatcher Demko.
Name a Canuck who didn't wear a visor.
Willie Mitchell.
All right.
I don't think we won that, man.
So I've got some bad news. Is most of those answers do not show up on my list of top 5 answers.
Those were all good answers.
You
I'm
took
not
that.
saying
It's
they're
okay,
bad,
it's okay.
but I will have to. It's going to
Clutched
take me a
up
little
last
longer
week.
to tally
Alright,
this
last
up.
week.
All right,
But
all right.
we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I think
you
those
still
are
have a
all good.
chance.
Okay, who's the scariest Canuck other than Gino?
Brashear?
Oh yeah. Why did I say? Well, Hordachuk's scary too.
Also, Demko's a broadcaster. He's boring.
Demko's not boring.
Yeah,
no,
he is.
no. Demko when he actually like opens.
Yeah,
up.
but
You don't know Demko like I know Demko.
Like my initial answer was JT,
Well, yes. Oh yeah, JT.
or like even
JT
Tyler
would be a
Myers.
coach.
Talk about how he like can explain concepts.
See,
and-
last year it was Ian Cole was the easy answer.
yeah,
Ian Cole is going to be a broadcaster.
Yeah.
like that's happening.
or like even Luke Shen in the past was
Luke
such
Shen,
an obvious.
Yeah, I don't know who else on the team right now that would. Be a good
Okay,
broadcaster.
I've got your points.
Lay it on. us.
Quads with an all-time fumble. Quads, you got 16 points.
Well, okay,
That's
tell
okay,
me the
you
number
clutched up
2
last
answers
week.
because I think those were all good answers.
So
I don't
okay?
think so.
So we'll go through this. The
Yeah.
most time on their Halloween costume, JT Miller was the number 2 answer. That was
That's just
Harmon's
wrong.
pick.
That's just
I
wrong.
Brock-
no, dude, did you not see what he dressed
Brock
up
Besser was the
His
number 1
wife
answer.
put him in that.
in? That's
JT
still
spent
effort.
zero.
Okay.
I would bet JT spends the least
It
amount.
doesn't
of
matter,
time.
but it got points. That's all that
Brock
matters.
Okay.
Besser was the number 1 answer. Niels Hoglander was the number 4. That was the only one that Quads got more than 2 points on.
I see. As soon as I
The
said Hogan, I
scariest,
thought Besser
the
too.
scariest player in Canucks history, Gino Ojic, number 1 answer. Also up near the top, Bertuzzi, Brashear, Tiger Williams, Rafi Torres. You got 1 point, Quads.
So someone voted for Hordachuk.
So
Awesome.
one
That was
person
you.
voted for Darcy Hordachuk. Besides Messier, who's the biggest villain in Canucks history, lots of really interesting ones here. Brad Marchand was the number 1 answer. 1 point for Ryan Kessler.
I was
Yeah,
thinking,
like-
Other
I was
options-
thinking
Oh,
Canucks,
okay,
who
right.
are
Well,
villains
so
in
so
Canucks.
so it's interesting because there were some of both, right? Duncan Keith was the number 2 answer.
Yeah.
But Mike Keenan was the number 3 answer. Louis Erickson, the number 4.
That's bad wording. I would have got that.
well, but I
What did
wanted
you
it to
say?
be open. The whole
Marchand.
Oh,
the whole point was supposed to be
so
open.
you understood
right?
it. I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, in the actual question, like can be a Canucks player or an opponent. I wanted it to be open.
See,
yeah,
okay.
Francesco Aquilini got 3 votes. So
How many votes?
3 people said Francesco.
More people voted for Francesco than Ryan Kessler.
Yes. Which current Canuck would make the best broadcaster? The number 1 answer was JT Miller. Jake DeBrusk, the number 2 answer, and I think
Ooh,
That's actually a good
yeah,
answer.
that's a good
Yeah.
one. Yep.
Runs in the
Canucks
family.
Convo listeners know.
Connor Garland, Tyler Myers
Yes.
also up there.
Yeah,
And then a
Garland.
few people voted for Teddy Bluger, and someone added the context is he's like quadlingual. He could broadcast in multiple languages.
Yeah.
So
Demko's a bad answer.
yeah, Demko gave you 2 points.
Yeah, it's got some points.
Finally, a Canuck who didn't wear the visor. This one was a really interesting spread. So Kevin Bieksa was Harmon's answer. That was the number 3 answer. Also up near the top, Linden, Bertuzzi, Stan Smeal. We got a few people that voted for Roberto Luongo, and I thought about it, and you know what? That is true. Roberto Luongo did not wear a visor. So all of that,
Whoa, did Willie Mitchell get no votes?
he got 2 points.
Okay, I gotta be honest. I think there was too big of a spread. You got all the obvious number 1s, but then there was too big of spreads.
If you
after
got
that.
Quads, if you got
It's
all the
okay.
number
I'm-
2s, you would have blown
I'm
this
not
one
rip-
out of the park.
Honestly, you get a free pass. You clutched up last week. I'm not gonna rip you.
5
in
and
front of you.
2, 5 and 2 on the week. Do you have some music to play, Jacob? 5 and 2.
No, I don't have any sad music anymore. I'm just going to let you guys look at your 5 and 2.
We'll take it. 5 and 2. All right. Let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you proudly by White Spot. At White Spot, they're all about enjoying great, comforting food and spending quality time with loved ones. With the new comfort menu, White Spot is focusing on cozy, satisfying flavors that are perfect to enjoy with family. Available now and developed by the White Spot culinary team, the comfort menu is filled with warm, indulgent dishes designed to make you feel right at home. The new menu features mouthwatering new additions like mini Yorkies, the braised beef burger, the home-style pot roast, and backed by popular demand, the iconic chicken pot pie. Bring your family to White Spot for a delicious meal perfect for the season. Visit your local White Spot today. Love White Spot on this show. Actually, so you're obviously both invited to my wedding, as you already know, but we're locking down the I was on the White Spot website last night, as I so often am, but they have a food truck, and that was something we wanted to do, is we wanted to have a food truck come to the wedding at like 10 o'clock, right? We're getting the White Spot food truck, the Triple O's truck.
Oh, let's
at
go.
10 p.m. is just gonna roll up to the wedding, and yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, It's gonna be fun. So yeah, we're big fans of White Spot on this show. But let's go with the chat here. Let's see what people have to say. A lot of conversations about my performance today in Family Feud. This one from Jarhead, regular listener to the show. Just take the L quads. Those answers were iffy. Fair enough.
That's
fair
okay.
enough.
Take it easy on him, chat. He clutched up last week.
Nick P. Quads deserves a little abuse for the Hornacek answer. I'm not sure.
That was awful.
I'm not sure he's a top 50 scariest Canuck.
As soon as I heard that, I was like, we're losing this. I was like, no one's voting.
I thought that was a good answer.
The most surprising thing was one other person agreed with him.
Well, Darcy Hornacek is a scary Canuck.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Brashear, the names that were listed.
That's
was
okay.
fair.
Again,
It was
I'm
fine.
not gonna rip you. You were good last week.
It was fine. Okay. This one from Brian Choi, as we kind of shift here. Let's talk hockey here, Harm. He said, I was looking at upcoming RFAs to see if there's any Hronek type targets, and one guy that stood out was Noah Dobson. If the Isles are out of the playoff race and he becomes available, do you just sell the farm to get Noah Dobson? I can't see Noah Dobson being available. I can't see it.
He's their number one defenseman.
They're going to commit to him.
He's a
but
star.
They haven't yet. They haven't.
He's also gonna, he's gonna command a huge contract, like massive. Like we're talking.
Too rich for the Canucks.
Well, I mean, if a defenseman like that is
buyout.
available, you make
it work.
You make it work. Like you move contracts out. You make it work to acquire a piece like that. But he's the number one defenseman, right? He was for a while there. He fell off down the stretch late, but for a while he was in the outside Norris Trophy conversation as like a top 5, top 10 contender, and teams just don't move pieces like that, especially because Dobson is still relatively young. He's same draft class as Quinn Hughes, so I can't see him being realistically available. If the Isles ever did decide to just completely blow it up, you sell the farm for him, but also there would be a lot of teams ready to try and sell the farm for him.
I wish we had something to give away because this would win it. This one from I Am Big Doggy in the chat. Been a while since we've heard from Big Doggy.
Yeah.
Love hearing from I Am Big Doggy in the chat. He said, the scariest Canucks right now are Myers and Susie coming over the boards. Let's kind of shift that into a conversation because we obviously talked about it with Wyatt, but the bottom 4 defense group, again, I don't know if you have it, Jacob, but the hockey stats card last night where they put up all the analytics and you can see basically in order of who is effective and who is ineffective. Fittingly, Quinn Hughes, Filip Hronek right at the top, and then at the bottom 4 names. This includes all the forwards, includes everyone. The bottom 4 names on this list: Noah Juulsen, Carson Soucy, Eric Brandstrom, Tyler Myers. I think it's fair to say this was probably Brandstrom's worst game as a Canuck. He misses the assignment on that backdoor tap-in. I don't want to pick on him specifically because he was far from the problem, but like this Soucy Myers thing, like this is a recurring theme. Like these guys have been at the bottom all season long, and it's becoming something that we need to keep talking about.
Yeah, I turned to J-Pat in the press box at one point, and it's so surprising because anytime there's a puck dumped into the corner for Soucy to go after, I immediately know that the Canucks can't get out of the zone. It's sad too because that's an area where I thought he made a ton of legitimate strides, and again, I heading into the season legitimately thought with how good he was last year that Soucy is one of the more underrated second pair shutdown defensemen in the NHL. Now, we're still talking about less than 10 games, and when we talk about like a player's floor and like they can only go up from here, that's what I think about when I see Carson Soucy operating the way he is right now. He has a track record of being much, much better than this, but you want to see it materialize sooner rather than later because I just don't have any faith when that pair is on the ice. And you especially run into those issues when you're against a team like New Jersey that has 2 potent top 6 lines because you can't shelter your second pair. Like there is no easy matchup for your second pair to take on. They're gonna have to go up against elite talent if you're up against a contending team that has a dynamite first and second line.
Some theories here that Noah Juulsen dragged down Eric Brandstrom last night. Certainly don't think he helped the situation, but on Soucy Myers, it is also worth mentioning that this is as bad as we've seen Tyler Myers play in some time. It's not just Soucy.
Well, also, this is a concern that I had when Myers signed that extension was, like, he's always been a volatile player. he's alternated between good and bad seasons. If you've paid attention since he came to Vancouver, his first year with the Canucks, 2019-20, if you remember, that was also the first year that JT Miller and Quinn Hughes arrived. They were playoff competitive, led to the bubble year. Tyler Myers was really good that year. I remember going back at some older articles, and at times he was playing better than Chris Tanev. He was arguably their best right-handed defenseman that year. So 19-20 has a good year. The COVID 56-game season, he was awful. He was brutal. That was the first time we were like, oh boy, he's chasing plays out of position, getting caught up the ice, loud turnovers, loud just mistakes that end up in the back of the net. Then 2021, 22, that was OEL's first season as a Canuck. Remember, OEL and Myers, they were sort of similar to Soucy Myers as far as like their first year together, where they were actually solid and about break even when it came to controlling shots and scoring chances despite getting matchup minutes. So it's like 21-22 season, Tyler Myers was pretty good. The 2022-23 season, that was the OEL, that was the year that led to the OEL buyout, where that pair was disastrous. Couldn't trust them on the ice at all. Myers was part of the problem there. Then last season, after a tough start, he really bounced back and found his game under Tocchet. Like, he's alternated good season, bad season, good season, bad season. Yep. He's always been up and down, and that was one of my concerns was, okay, he played really well for them last season, and maybe he's just figured things out in a more stable defensive environment with better coaching, but also he's getting older. There is concern that his game could fall off at any point, and again, none of this is to say that Myers can't bounce back and play at a better level, because again, he was also awful last October and he turned it around. But this was part of the risk that was baked in when they re-signed him to that extension, was sometimes you don't know what you're going to get with Tyler Myers.
I keep thinking back to those offseason conversations we had where we talked about, okay, well, the coaching staff believes they can get more out of Desharnais. They feel like they can do something similar that they did with Myers with Desharnais, and that this is what they're going with, and we didn't necessarily love it, but like, yeah, that's looking like a pretty big mistake right now with how they approached the back end on the offseason. I mean, you can't really argue that. They're going to go make a trade. Like, they're going to make a trade to fix that mistake. But again, you were expecting Soucy to play better. I think that's
the biggest surprise. Biggest disappointment on the back end by far is Soucy, because with Myers, at least we've seen the history. It's not a complete shock that he'll have stretches where he looks lost in a top four role. But with Soucy, it's okay, this is a surprise. I didn't see him coming. I was talking about him as by far being the clear third best defenseman on this team after Hughes and Hronek, and he just hasn't looked like that caliber of player at all.
Brian Choi in the chat. Was Sam Lafferty the glue?
Absolutely not.
0 points in 9 games for Sam Lafferty to begin his...
He also got $2 million, didn't he?
Yeah, 2 years at $2 million.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, with the Buffalo Sabres, 9 games in, 0 points.
That's that Sabres tax. If you want to come to Buffalo, you got to pay guys extra.
That's right. I hear the Bulls have to pay that same tax. Okay, what else we got here? We've got... we've got Arjun Karana in the chat, who, again, regular listener to the show. Love hearing from Arjun. But he said, we need to talk about Hronek. He needs to do better. I don't think that's true, but I did wonder, and we saw it last night. We saw Hughes Hronek split up. Like, the more I see Myers Soucy just, like, not be able to tread water, the more I'm like, what would the impact be of splitting up Hughes Hronek? Like, has that thought crossed your mind, or is it just that, you know what? Like, the Hughes Hronek pairing is so good at making the other team defend the entire time that if you move away from that and it becomes even a little bit worse, like, you're all in all, you're gonna still be, bleeding chances.
Yeah, well, I brought this up a few days ago to you. It is something that I have thought about. But in having said that, I would still give them this California road trip with the D pairs as they're currently constructed to see if they can sort things out, because these are combinations as far as the top four that worked really well for them last year. So I'm not going to hit the panic button after 9 games and look to split them up. But if the California road trip, we continue to see troubles on the back end and in that bottom four, then at some point you might have to just trust, and as much as Quinn probably won't like it, lean on him to drive his own pair and allow Hronek to maybe stabilize a player like Carson Soucy.
Okay, final thing for me, Harm. Let's take a quick peek at the Canucks November schedule. I think we'll do it again. Maybe on tomorrow's show, we'll see. But San Jose and Frank Seravalli is going to join us tomorrow. I think I talked about this, but Frank Seravalli is going to join us on tomorrow's show. Saturday in San Jose. Then you've got Tuesday against Anaheim. LA is obviously a tougher test. Then you've got you're back home, which hasn't been good for them so far. 1 win through 5 home games. You're back home on November 9th against the Edmonton Oilers, the McDavid-less Edmonton Oilers. Then you've got the Calgary Flames. That's obviously a tough matchup. But then the New York Islanders, Chicago Blackhawks, Nashville Predators, and New York Rangers. You close it out with games against the Ottawa Senators, Bruins, Penguins, and Buffalo Sabres. So it's a mixed bag, but it's not as bad as our October schedule. And they got through October. Like, their October schedule was objectively harder, in my view.
I mean, their October schedule wasn't that hard in general, though. But you're right. Like, November's like
easier.
Soft.
November, just
No
with those
back-to-backs,
first teams, no back-to-backs. Like, you can theoretically, if we're to believe that Thatcher Demko's 2 to 3 weeks away, I think Rick Dollywall reported that. If Thatcher Demko's 2 to 3 weeks away, we might not need to see another Archer Sheloff start.
Yeah.
You could just play Kevin Lankinen.
But also with Demko, I'm gonna believe it when I actually see him fully practicing.
For sure.
With the
And
team.
we've kept
I'm
saying
tired.
that.
Nothing against Dollywall. Like, I fully trust his reporting. I'm sure that is fully accurate. But
I get what
just
you're saying.
with this injury, the uncertainty around it, the stops and starts, even the way that Taki described it as like 4 good days in a row. Like, well, what was happening the other previous weeks? That is not going to register in my mind as a realistic possibility until I actually see him practicing with the team.
Fair enough. Nick Pochak in the chat. The hopium I've been smoking is that they've got points playing horribly and have tons of room for growth.
That's not far-fetched.
That's a glass half full
that's
take,
a
and I think it's an
glass half
accurate
full
one.
take.
Yeah, I think it's an accurate one. Hopium. I like that term. I'm going to start saying that. Hopium.
Well, the other one's copium, right?
Copium, yes. So this is a bit copium, a bit hopium. But for anyone else, the final thing I wanted to point out, I read this in the Farmies. You should also be reading the Farmies over at CanucksArmy.com from Dave Hall, who was on the show yesterday. But 22 shots in 4 games for Jonathan Lecker-Mackey. 2 goals. Nobody but Quinn shooting on this team.
No, come on, pump the brakes.
Remember earlier this week when I was talking about how great it is that they don't need Lecker-Mackey to come up right away?
Yeah, well, okay, hold on. I mean, we can have this conversation later. I'm sure we will, but let him dominate the
Yes.
A.
No,
and
again.
don't seesaw a young prospect up and down.
You're our only hope. You're our only hope, Jonathan. We need you up there. Okay, anything else that you wanted to say?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
I've got one thing here. Just a little Halloween spook, which
oh, nice.
was wonderfully shared by the Stanchion. I wanted to bring it up when he was on, but I think this is probably the best time
for those in the podcast. That's signed? No, it's not signed. For those in the podcast, the Jersey Botch, which is a regular feature in the Stanchies, has someone wearing a Mark Messier jersey.
Like, not just like that era's jersey.
No, like this era Adidas jersey.
That's got to be a joke, right? That's got to be a troll. Like, no one could seriously have thought that I'm a huge Mark Messier fan.
I'm gonna throw that on there. Someone did it. He did it.
That's got to be a joke or troll.
He did it.
It's an expensive joke.
That is an expensive joke. Let's get to...
I saw one of those jerseys, but you know how when you go on the website to customize, it starts with your name?
Yes.
So I saw one of these jerseys with your name left and some random number.
You're joking.
I'm serious. I'm dead serious.
Oh my goodness. That's great. That's great. Okay, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, which is brought to you by, you guessed it, Bet365. I'm sticking with my Leafs. Talk about the Leafs a lot on this show, obviously. Taking the Leafs, they're heavy favorites tonight against the Seattle Kraken, and they're going to get the job done. Minus 210 odds on the Leafs. That's the bet of the day over at Bet365. Proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. All right. Anything else that you wanted to say?
Nope.
Excellent. We'll wrap it up there. We'll be back tomorrow. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar, our thanks again to Wyatt Arndt for joining today's show. My name is Dave Guidrelli. Happy Halloween, folks. Thanks so much for spending it with us and listening to another episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.